Hi guys, this is Stephanie with House of Fruits, and I just wanted to come and say hello to introduce myself so you could see my face finally. You've seen my hands work and you've heard my voice, and I just am so appreciative that you guys keep coming back and watching my videos and having conversations with me and sharing my videos and just subscribing and supporting me. I also want to give a huge shout out to Tina at Rehatch Designs because she has shared a couple of my videos and tried to help my channel grow. I'm so appreciative of that. She obviously knows how hard it is. She's been on YouTube for a little while and everybody started from somewhere. And right now she's doing this really cool thing and sharing smaller YouTube channels to try to help them grow. And I just think that's really awesome. And I'm so appreciative. She and I live in the same general area, and she has been just a huge encouragement for me. So those of you who don't know who Tina is, I'd love for you to go and check out her channel. She has this goal. She's trying to make it to 10,000 subscribers, and she's really close. She just needs that extra little push. And so I thought I would turn it around and try to encourage those who don't know her to click the link in the comments below in the description and go check out her channel, subscribe, just help her get that push over 10,000. She's doing a huge giveaway, and every video that she's done since she started the giveaway, she has added an additional item, the items that she sells, which are multiple creative products, IOD, print art, lots of different decoupage papers and just different products, paints and different things. And so anyway, she's been adding one for every video, and she's going to give all of these things away, not just to one person, but to multiple people. And so all you have to do is subscribe to her channel and comment down below, and she will enter you into the giveaway. And you can do it once per video. So watch all her videos, help her channel grow. And anyway, I just wanted to kind of give her a plug because she's really been trying to help other small YouTubers grow, and it's just a really awesome thing to do, to stop what you're doing for your own channel and to focus on someone else. And so anyway, it's just really cool. But I'm also going to do several projects today. I'm going to try to have a fall theme, maybe some sort of Halloweenish projects, and just get a handful of things done for fall. I haven't focused on that, and I think that we're in that season. So we're going to get started now. Okay, our first project is this cake stand pedestal. I believe it's galvanized metal. Someone did a little spray painting on it, and I found it at the thrift store for maybe $4 to $5. It definitely was in rough condition, and so I gave it a wipe down and decided to start painting it with Dixie Belle Chalk Mineral style paint, which is an all-in-one paint, and this is the color Highlands. It's one of their new colors, the countryside colors, and it's just a really pretty green. It'll dry a little darker than this color that you see right here, and it's just a really pretty sage green color. I carry this now in my shop at the Painted Tree in North Richland Hills, Texas, and currently working on a website, so eventually you'll be able to get it there, and all the other Dixie Belle products as well. This, of course, is the silk line, and I also carry just the regular chalk mineral paint along with all the accompanying support products for the line. But I do give this one coat to start and then let it dry, making sure I'm smoothing it out. This paint is really very smooth. I don't get very many brush strokes at all. It's very easy to work those out, which is always a plus. You don't have to work as hard to paint your item. So here I'm just painting the top part, and like you'll see just how smooth it goes on, and then I'll let it dry and hitting it with my heat tool to help speed it along. Now here I go ahead and start the second coat. It's dried enough, and it gets really good coverage. This silk paint has really good coverage, but there are some spots that need to be dealt with. So I put the second coat on, being sure to smooth it out. And I'm just prepping the surface because I will add some decoupage paper to the center of it just to add a fall touch. Here is the decoupage paper of choice. It's such a beautiful fall picture with the pumpkins and fruit and some stems and floral in it. And I thought the color worked perfectly with the Highlands paint color. I'm using one of those water markers from the Dollar Tree and just tracing out the shape I need it to be. And I'm tearing it because it's a lot easier to blend the torn edges than to get a perfect circle. And so, plus this paper is just slightly too narrow. And what I'll end up doing is, as I'm tearing these pieces off, I'm putting them to the side and saving them in order to fill in other areas once I decoupage. You'll see me right here. I'm kind of trying to dry fit where the pieces will go. And because the pattern is a little bit more busy around the edges, it's really easy to add those smaller pieces to fill in the area. So here I'm going to start decoupaging, and then I'll add those pieces in. And I'm using Dixie Belle top coat. I'm using a matte top coat to use as my decoupage medium, and I will spray this decoupage paper, or it's a rice paper, with water to kind of loosen it up. It actually helps it lay down smoother, and I'll add the decoupage medium to the surface and move it around. I think I switched brushes because the bristles were not pliable enough to move around, and it was a little harder to use. So I switched brushes to move it around, and I'm just filling the space with a full, coat of the decoupage medium. Rice paper is thicker than regular decoupage paper. Or, decoupage paper is normally like a heavier tissue, and this is just a thicker, and so if you put a little extra on there, it helps it because it will absorb into it. So you do make sure you add enough underneath, and then here I'm just putting a coat of it on top and around the edges, and then I will add those smaller pieces to kind of piece it together, and I'll make sure I go over the top of those pieces as well. There's always a fix for any issue you come across. um, This one is just fill in the area with the other pieces, and you don't notice, it being pieced together very much. Plus, the next step will help camouflage that area as well. And here I'm taking some gold wax, and I'm just smearing it on with my finger. I'm just wanting to add that around the edges. It helps cover any of the little white areas that were where the paper was torn. And then it will just add an extra decor element. And, I think gold looks just great with all harvest type pictures. So I just thought I'd smear some on around the center, and then I'm going to go around the edge and just make sure there's a great line of it around. What you don't see me do is I do the bottom edge around the bottom. There's like a little lip, and so I do it on there. And then off camera, I do add even more around on top of the green border just to add a little shimmer. Um, it'll kind of blend in that little bit more harsh line around the center and just help the whole thing kind of shimmer. And it ends up being really pretty. I just love how it turned out. And this would be a great item that, you could display on. I don't believe I would put any food on it unless I sealed it with something else. But, put a candle on and a little decor items for the fall to make a centerpiece. It would be really pretty for a cloche as well. Here's our second project, and it is actually a metal pail from Christmas. Not sure which Christmas because I picked it up at a thrift store. And it had a paper coating, but I believe that it will all work out. I'm putting enough top coats and paint on it to, end up sealing it down enough for it to not come up. It's not really loose either. So here I use the water pen again to tear this napkin. I pulled the 2 plies off of it so that it's the thin layer with just the color on it. And I'm just sizing it up and seeing what other pieces need to be torn off. This is a really cute little image. I love this little cat. It's such a fun, cute fall Halloween kind of image. And I'm just taking off a little bit more off the bottom. And again, when you tear it, it kind of looks more artistic and blends a little bit better. You have to be careful with the napkins though, because they're way more delicate. And so this next step, I will end up just taking my finger sander and just roughing this up a little bit. Like I said, that paper was on there really well. So I just rough it up just to make sure that the paint will stick to it. There is a place where there was a label. I didn't quite get all of that off, but I knew I was putting paint over the top of it and it would seal in. And so I just give it a really good scratch, scuff coat. And then I start in with my black paint. I use Caviar from Dixie Belle, and it is the chalk mineral paint. It doesn't have a top coat, but you don't necessarily need a top coat with Dixie Belle chalk mineral paint. Just depends on what you're using it on. As if you need extra protection. A lot of chalk paints you do have to seal. This one has a beautiful finish. It's not necessary always to seal it. And so this is just a really good black color. There are other shades of black. This one is probably the darkest one of the Dixie Belle blacks. And so I'm trying to leave that edge. It doesn't end up being a big deal in the end. Just I'm trying to get the black off of the metal sections, or the around the edge is like a rusty color. And so I guess I really think that I might just leave it like that, but I don't end up doing that in the end. And then the side pieces, I try to make sure I keep the black off of that. And so I'll get, a really good coat of black on. And here I'm just taking off a little bit more where it got on the metal piece. And so now I'm going to dry it with my heat tool just so I can move on. Try to speed the process up when you're making videos. So you can see the first coat didn't cover as well, and it was because that paper was pretty slick. So I put a second coat and it covers really well. I don't believe I have to do any more painting to it after this, but because I'm also doing layers of other things. So just a pretty decent coat. If I were leaving it black with nothing else on it, I probably would have done more touch up just because there were a few areas that you could see through just slightly. So I would have touched those up if I were leaving it just a solid black color. So after that coat, I go ahead and try to speed up the drying with my heat tool. And I'm really on this one not too worried about any like uneven places or streaks or brush strokes, because the next step I'm going to use a crackle medium. And this is cracked patina. I really like this medium. I have a couple jars of it, and I'm just trying to use it up before I open up my Dixie Belle to use it. And this is just, it's a very liquidy texture, and you really want to make sure you're not putting it on too thick in any one area, just making sure it's a really even coat. I like to do sort of cross hatch pattern as I'm painting it on, so that it doesn't look too uniform and streaky once you add your next layer, which is the paint color. Sometimes when you do that, you just see stripes almost of crackle. And so you'll see I use kind of a cross hatch just to get it to just look kind of uneven all over, just so there's texture going in all different ways. Just don't want to show just a bunch of lines going uniform. And this medium, once it dries, it might still be tacky here and there. And so, you know, you just have to deal with that. But I mixed up a color of orange. I used this on several projects, and this is the second project I've used it on. And so it has been in this cup for, you know, a few hours. But I did a custom color because I didn't have just one color that I wanted to use. I added a couple of them together. When you're painting on top of crackle medium, and this goes for any brand, you cannot go over and over and over the same spot, because it starts to crackle really quickly. And you'll see there's a couple of places where I did go back over and it moved the whole chunk of paint. So you know, you want to make sure you get enough paint on and you move quickly, making sure it's good. You can see at the top of this right now that it's starting to crackle. And so it happens really quickly. And you'll see a couple places where I move the chunk of paint, like it's like a solid, you know, it's doing its job, and it's kind of solid in a weird way. And so if you go over it too much, you'll just swipe the whole section of paint off. And so you can see right there, I did that. So I'm just going to kind of try to blot some back on and just leave it. And so, and I don't mind that I have a thicker spots of paint in one spot, and then some of them are just a little bit thinner. The crackle is different for each amount of paint you put on. So if you put a really heavy amount in one spot, the crackle is going to look different than if it's thinner in one spot. And you can see this as we go along in this section of the video. You can just see the different crackle textures that happen. You get a finer one when you don't put on very much paint, and you get a larger chunks almost when you put on more paint. And I like that. I don't want it to be completely even everywhere. I feel like this crackle is kind of a cool, moody effect for Halloween and fall, just because, you know, outside everything's drying. So this kind of looks drier and like it's crunchy and whatever. Here you can see I didn't get as much paint in these spots, and so I'm just dabbing more on because it's so thin right there. I believe it will kind of reactivate, even though that spot's fairly dry. There's still so much of that black showing through that there's also the crackle medium right under it that will continue to work. So I'm just adding a little more to sort of make it a little bit more orange in that spot. And it'll, like I said, it will crackle. If you didn't want as much, you could actually paint a whole nother coat of orange paint over, and you would see a little bit less crackle with that layer if you wanted to tone down the crackle. But for this project, this is just awesome amount of crackle. So here I'm using a decoupage medium because I'm going to put the napkin on. And normally I paint white under the napkins. And I contemplated this, but I thought, well, this is kind of Halloween. It'll be more moody. I don't care if it's a little bit darker. In the end, I kind of wish I would have at least dry brushed a little bit of white on there. It's not bad. I do like it. I just wish it was a slight bit brighter in the area of the napkin. You know, the image would pop a little bit more. But it does look very moody, and I end up, you know, really liking it as well. I did a couple of projects where I used this napkin and I did not put the white paint under it to help the image pop. And They turned out fine. They look very dark and moody, which is kind of that season. So it's not necessarily, it's just a preference. And so I kind of wished I had at least one of them gone and done the white underneath. Right now it's a little brighter and popping a little more than it will in the end, because you will end up seeing the orange come from underneath it when it's dry. You'll see parts of the crackle, which, you know, I think is actually a cool look too. So now we'll let it dry and move on to the next step. So here it is dry. You can see how it's, you know, it's darker. It doesn't quite pop as much as it would if there was white underneath it. And I take gold rub and buff and I go around the edge. I decide it needs to be, it just needs to have a little bit softer look than the rest. And so I think it adds a little bit more elegance in a way to add that gold, even though it's still a very rough, dark and moody type piece of decor. And I go around the top rim, and then I'll just add, there's not a real rim at the bottom, so I just kind of make my own and add the gold rub and buff around the bottom edge all the way around and around the top. And what you don't see in the video is that I do go ahead and rub some on the metal handle, not the wood section, but the metal part of it. And here it is. I added some flowers just to set it up, and I just love how it turned out. This is the third project, and here are some little pots, and they're little owl pots. And I just, every time I see owls, I just think of my grandmother. She loved owls, and she had owls everywhere. And so when I saw these at the Goodwill, I could not pass them up, and I thought they'd make great fall decor. And, you know, a couple of the colors are outside of the norm for fall colors. So I'm going to add some floral foam, which I believe this came from the Dollar Tree or Walmart, one or the other. And I just used my little Cricut scraper actually, and I just cut some of the corners, and then I'm just going to squeeze it in. I just want it to fit tight. Trim it a little more and push it down. And I repeat that process for each of these little pots. Look how cute those are. I just love these little owls. So I take some Spanish moss, and I'm gonna kind of camouflage the top. I'm gonna go ahead and add some before I put in the flowers and greenery that I'm putting in there. And just so that I can have some down in there, and as I stick in the flowers, it'll kind of hold it on. I do add a little bit of hot glue underneath this foam before I get started with the flowers. So I take a amount of flowers. I actually got some of these from the Dollar Tree, a few picks from Hobby Lobby. I believe that's where I got most of it. And I just start beginning to cut them apart, making little pieces so that I can kind of put multiple styles of greenery and flowers in each little pot. That little orange pom-pom flower is so cute, and it comes from Hobby Lobby. It's kind of one of my favorites right now. And I believe I bought some other, it's yellow, and I bought orange last year. And I think I'm going to go back and look for more. I just think they're so cute. But they could also be summertime and spring as well. So here I am gluing in the moss, and then I'll start to just stick in the flowers. And it's very random. I mean, it's really do it to your taste. Spread them out. Just try to create balance with, you know, each color. So I added in the red, balancing it out, and then I'll just add in different greeneries. And I like to use multiple shades of greenery. Some of it is a little bit brighter, and some of it has both darker green and like browning green, and then the little fern leaves are kind of brown. So it just sort of adds dimension when you use lots of different colors in it, different shades of green, because nothing's ever all one color. Most of these I just stick in. If they go in and seem like they stick pretty good, I don't necessarily use hot glue, but off to the right I have some hot glue, and I'm putting some on the different pieces that seem like they're not real stable. My camera could have been pointed a little bit better to capture all of what my hands were doing. But mostly when I go down in that area, I'm just putting hot glue on those stems. There's a lot of fidgeting with doing these little floral arrangements. And these would be really good for little shelf sitters, tier tray decorations, to sit on top of a stack of books. It's a really cute little floral arrangement. I did contemplate putting ribbon in them, but once I filled it with flowers and greenery, and then at the end I'll add a little more moss. I decided the bow would hide the little owl pot, so I just left off the ribbon. I think this first one takes a little bit longer than the other two do, just because it's, it's the first one. I'm like, how am I going to do this? How do I balance it? And how many pieces do I really need to use? And so this is the last little owl pot, and some of those pieces I glued into the harder piece of stem because they were popping off, and that just made them more secure. And all these like little arrangements, they're really more of a preference, your own style. If you wanted these to be more moody, you could have used like some of the dark dried flowers. You could have just used, I was in Michael's the other day, and there were just all these really like just black tones and deep reds. You could have made them more moody like that. It's all about preference and the style you're trying to create. And so next I will grab my bag of moss and go ahead and add some more to each pot, just sort of fluffing it in and filling in the spots that look a little empty around the edge. It kind of just creates more texture as well. The foam wasn't really showing at that point, but I wanted you to see a little bit more moss and texture. And that color of that moss, the Spanish moss, also is a little bit more fall and winter looking to me. I have some other green moss that looks the same, but it is brighter, and I felt like this would fit more for the owls. And it really doesn't take a lot, because you can, once you pull some off, you kind of fluff it up and it fills in rather well. You usually get a giant bag of moss, and so I usually put it in smaller bags so that I can pull them out as I need them. So there we have it, the 3 cute little owl floral arrangements, lots of color in them, and I just love how they turned out. These will also be in my little shop at the Painted Tree in North Richland Hills, Texas. And I just want to thank you guys for joining me today and watching me do these fall projects. I'd love for you to subscribe, like, and share my channel. And don't forget to go over and visit Tina from Rehatch Designs, her channel, and subscribe just to help her get through to 10,000. She may have already be there by the time I'm finished with this video, but nevertheless, go check her channel out, and I will talk to you guys later.